everyone, Sabrina here from Scrappy Tales Crafts, and today I'm sharing part 2 of my 10 cards 1 kit video using the October 2020 Hero Arts card kit. So for card 6, I am starting off with some ink blending here. You can see I die cut a tag from the ornament die in the kit, and then I also have a blue panel cut to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, and I'm ink blending Blueprint Sketch on both. I cut the tag and the panel from blue cardstock just so that it would be quick to do some blending and I would only have to use one Distress Oxide ink. So here you can see I die cut some stitched hills from white cardstock to create some snowbanks. I'm going to glue one flat onto the panel, and then the snowbank that will be in the front I will pop up with foam tape. And I'll do the same thing with the tag, but I think I glue both snowbanks flat with art glitter glue. And here you can see I'm going to trim off the excess of the snowbank in the front, and I had some leftover stitching that I decided to use on my tag. So I glued those flat. I'll trim off the excess from the back of the ornament, and then I can start to arrange my scene. So this is similar to one of the cards I made in part 1. I decided instead of using the 3 deer, I would use all trees and the snowman from the stamp set. So I'm going to lay out my scene just using my die cut images, and I like that this is sort of like a forest scene with Santa flying over the moon. And then on my ornament I decided to stamp Santa directly onto the ink blended ornament. For my card panel I decided to stamp it onto my coordinating die cut. And you can also see that for the card panel I used some white die cuts, and for my tag I'm using my blue die cuts, and I'm basically just trying to use up what I have in that huge pile that I die cut. So I am stamping out all the images with the sticky ink that came in the kit, and I'm going to use some different embossing powders for all of these images. And I do like the look of the blue outline and the white outline. I think the blue blends in with the sky better, but the white obviously pops more. So you guys can decide what you prefer. I do like the look of both. So for my white trees, I decided to use the blue powder that came in the kit. I decided to just pour a bunch of blue powder in the center of my scrap paper so that I can dip each tree, and that made the process pretty quick and easy. And then I can just funnel the leftover powder back into the jar using that scrap paper that I just folded in half to create a funnel. So for my Santas on the sleigh, I'm going to silver glitter emboss them, as well as the snowman and I think that little deer. And then for my blue trees, I decided to silver glitter emboss them. I think they would be pretty embossed in white, which is what I did in part 1. And here is the Santa that I just stamped onto the sky. I will use the silver glitter powder. Here you can see that the ink wasn't quite dry yet, so I had to use a paintbrush to wipe off any excess powder. So I'm just going to go ahead and heat set everything by stamping and embossing everything ahead of time. It makes it really quick to just heat set them all at once. And while I am doing that, I want to mention that I have posted a design team call for Scrappy Tales Crafts. If you're new to my channel, I have a new line of stamps and dies you can check out on my website at scrappytalescrafts.com. And this month I did post a design team call on my blog, as well as the design team call Facebook groups. So if you're looking to be on a team next year, definitely join the Facebook design team call group. A lot of companies have posted that they're looking for their 2021 team. So I can link the Facebook group in my description, as well as the coordinating blog that will explain how to apply, what the benefits are, what the requirements are. I figured, some of you might not know of the Facebook group, you might not follow my blog, and these Hero Arts videos tend to get more views, so I thought I would go ahead and mention it real quick in case you're interested. Some of you guys have been subscribed to me for a while now. Some of you have purchased some of my new products, and I definitely wanted to let you guys know because you are the first people I would want to ask to be on my team. So all of the information is in my coordinating blog, which I will link down below. And I also want to mention real quick that I started an affiliate program. So if you have recently purchased anything from my latest release and you are active on social media, you can actually earn commission. If you link your products to my website, you can get 10% off the sale order. So if you're interested in that, I will have the link to apply for my affiliate program down below as well. All right, so back to the card. Here you can see I'm taking a Gina K snow stencil and I am blending, or not blending, I guess I am using a finger dauber to apply the sticky ink from the kit through the stencil. And then once that ink is applied, I poured over white powder. I did that for the card panel and for the moon that you just saw there. And for the tag, I'm going to do something different. So in real life, snow would fall in front of objects. So in reality, the snow would fall over the trees and the snowman. But I was worried that the snow would cover my die cuts too much and it would be a little too distracting on my card panel, but I was curious to see how it would look because sometimes I really like that look of having snow in front of the die cuts, sometimes I don't. So I decided to experiment with my tag because it wouldn't have been as big of a deal to ruin the tag as opposed to the card. So for the tag, I decided to first glue down all my die cuts and then emboss the snow on top. So again, I applied the stencil on top of the tag, applied the ink with a finger dauber using the sticky ink, and then I poured the white powder over those stenciled areas. I used a paintbrush to wipe away any excess powder, and I do like how it turned out. I think because the trees are so light, you really can't see the snow that well, but personally, I still, for this design at least, preferred to just have the snow in the background as opposed to over the die cuts. So here is the back of my ornament. I just ink blended the same blueprint sketch onto the same blue die cut ornament, and I embossed the back with that stencil. I'm going to add a silver glitter topper to the front and back of the tag, and that's pretty much going to complete my coordinating tag. So moving back to the card panel, I am now going to arrange my embossed die cuts to create a scene that I think looks nice. I did go with a silver deer, silver snowman, and silver Santa, so that I had 3 silver elements and 5 blue trees. I did go with the rule of odds. Having the 3 silver creates a visual triangle, and apparently odd numbers look more pleasing to the eye. So I did glue down all the blue trees flat with art glitter glue, and then I popped up the silver elements with foam tape. I guess I did pop up a couple of the trees, but some of them I did glue flat. I like the difference in dimension. I think that adds a nice touch to my card, so I do that quite often. And I just used some teeny tiny strips of 3M foam tape for that. So for the sentiment on my card, I took another scrap of that blue cardstock I used to cut the tags from, and I'm going to add the blueprint sketch to the top. I'll make sure that's nice and dry before embossing my sentiment, so I chose Merry Christmas. I'm going to white heat emboss it. And if you watched part 1, I did mention that I almost burnt down my house. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but here you're going to see the smoke coming from my heat tool. I think it's because I used the end of my paintbrush, which is wooden, so it just kind of caught on fire there. Let me know if this has ever happened to you. I have used that paintbrush to kind of hold down my heat embossed die cuts before, and it's never happened. I really think it's just because my heat tool is so old at this point and the temperature is way hotter than it used to be. So yeah, I definitely need a new heat tool. So I'm going to mat my ink blended panel onto some silver glitter cardstock. I just created a really skinny frame. I'm going to also mat the sentiment strip onto some silver glitter cardstock. I popped up the sentiment and I did glue down the panel flat. So here is my coordinating tag. I added some white twine to the top with a blue ribbon, and that is going to complete my 6th card set. So for card 7, I'm going to create another pattern using red, white, and blue. So it's kind of like a patriotic Christmas card. I might give it to my husband because he's in the Air Force, But anyway, you can see I have some white strips of cardstock that I stamped out using one of the snowflake stamps from the kit, and I'm just going to pour red embossing powder over those strips. Now you can see I did not do a great job stamping those, and that's because I can't really see the clear ink because it's clear. So I kind of just went out of a whim and took that risk and just went across the whole strip of cardstock. I did purposely make this strip longer in case that sort of thing happened, so it will end up working for me. I also had a die cut one, a extra one that I did just in case I messed up the first one, which I did. So it ends up looking good. Point of the whole rant. So here you can see I have a red strip, which in the middle I stamped out a sentiment. Next to the sentiment I added the two deers that are facing each other to the left and right, and then I added two snowflakes next to the deer. So it's very symmetrical. You can see on the top here I'm adding that strip of dots to the top and bottom of the red strip. And then for the sentiment in the center, I'm going to emboss it with gold powder. I think everything else will be embossed with white powder. I think the problem and the reason I did not like the fifth card in part one was just because I used too many embossing powders, so I stuck with red, white, and blue and just a little bit of gold. So here I'm adding my white powder now to the stamped strips that I added to the top, and then I also will add the white powder over my deer, and I'm not sure what I do with the snowflakes. Oh, you know what? I'm going to cut those off anyway because I went with a vertical card. At this time I thought I would go with a horizontal, but I like the vertical orientation more. So I'm just going to heat set everything. Here I'm heat setting those white strips, and here you can notice that I did have some overlap when I stamped some of the snowflakes, but it will work. It's not the end of the world. And I forgot to mention that this snowflake kind of looks like the snowflakes you would see on a stitch sweater. So I really like how this card turned out, but while I had those images out, I'm going to just work on the tag real quick. So for this red oval, I'm stamping the tree in the center and the two deer next to the tree. And then above the tree, I'm going to stamp those rows of dots. I did that to the top and bottom of the oval. I'm going to do that to the top and bottom of this other oval. And in the center, I will stamp out my sentiment, and that will be for the back of my tag. So again, I'm going to do some more selective embossing. For the sentiment, I will emboss that with gold powder. And then for the dots, I think I went with white powder. For the tree in the center, I went with gold. My deer will be white, and then the dots at the top and bottom will also be white. So here I'm bringing in my white powder, and I really enjoy doing the selective embossing technique. It does not take a whole lot of extra time. However, if you want to use a bunch of different colors, you could die cut these ovals from white and stamp the deer and all your images with different colored inks. But I do love the look of embossing on Christmas cards, especially metallic and glitter powders. So I am using my brush just to make sure that I'm avoiding adding powder where I don't want the powder to be. And then I'll just go ahead and heat set these two ovals, which, by the way, this oval does come in the kit. It's meant to decorate the ornament die. So I thought that these red ovals were kind of stark red, so I'm going to take my black soot blender brush, and just whatever is on that brush I will blend on some of that black ink just to tone it back a little bit. I wanted it to be more of a darker red. And then here I'm taking a dry paper towel and wiping off that black ink on the white powder. And here I have the tags, which I die cut from the navy blue cardstock. But I guess I'm switching back to the card panel. I guess there's a lot of back and forth, so sorry if I'm making you guys dizzy, but I try to do things efficiently. So I try to do the embossing and the stamping for both the card and the tag just to save time. So for the navy portions of this card, I'm going to take the small tree and a small snowflake and stamp them out in a row. I did not use a ruler, I just kind of eyeballed it and tried to go as straight as possible. And then I'll just white heat emboss this row. And one thing I did not like about card 5, again, I know a lot of you actually liked card 5, but for me there was too many powders and it was also too busy. So I knew for this card I was going to limit my powders and I wasn't going to go for a bunch of different patterns. You can see I copied everything that I'm doing on the top, I'm doing on the bottom, so it looks symmetrical and I think more pleasing to the eye. So I just went ahead and heat set those trees and snowflakes. Again, I love that that snowflake looks like the snowflakes you would see on a sweater. And then I went ahead and glued down the white strips to the top and bottom. Here you can see I have 2 of them, and I just went with whatever looks better. There is a portion where the 2 snowflakes overlap, but I don't think it's a huge deal. For the red strip, I am going to add some gold behind, just some gold little skinny strips. I felt like the sentiment was the only gold element on this card, so adding those gold strips really helped to make this red panel stand out. And just to make it stand out even more, I will pop it up with foam tape. And I am using my U-line foam tape here. This is really cheap. I only really use it to pop up larger panels like this. And I have a ton of this stuff. I'm trying to get through it because I have heard that there is a less sticky U-line tape. This stuff is really sticky. So once it's down, it is down. I thought I would make this a little bit different by rounding the corners. Now, if you have a corner chomper, that would be great. I do not. So I just used my scissors and tried my best to round the corners evenly, and I really do like how that turned out. Just to embellish this card, I'm going to use some Trinity Stamp gold sequins just to tie in a little bit more gold to the card, and I'm really happy with how this one turned out. This was the sweater pattern that I have been attempting 3 times now, and 3rd time is a charm. I really love how this looks. I think this would be super pretty with blue, white, and silver, or red, green, and gold. So here we're back to my tag, and I laid the red ovals on top of the blue ornaments, and I just felt like something was missing. It was just a little too plain Jane for me. So I'm going to use a Christina Warner hack. She's been doing this for like 10 years now, and whenever she wants to spruce up something, she just adds white stitching around. So I'm using a white gel pen, and I am adding my stitch lines all around the ornament. I'm also going to add, of course, my gold topper. For some of my ornaments, I went with gold glitter or silver glitter, and then some I went with gold mirror or silver mirror. It just kind of depended on the design, but I definitely wanted those toppers to be shiny in some way. So for the red ovals, I'll pop them up with foam tape. And then I think for the twine, I'm going to use red and white. Yes. And it's getting a little bit dark, so after this tag is done, I'm going to call it a day and start fresh tomorrow. These cards and tags took 3 days. Well, I would say 2.5 days to complete part 1 and part 2. I don't know why this took so long because there was no coloring. I guess the embossing does add quite a bit of time. Even after I die cut everything ahead of time, it still took 2.5 days. So yeah, I didn't think that would happen, but I love how these cards turned out. It was a really fun kit to work with. So here is the tag and the card side by side. For my 8th design, you can see I have 2 white die cut ornaments, and I'm going to ink blend onto both of them using my Picket Fence Studios blender brush and some Picked Raspberry Distress Oxide ink. I'm concentrating most of the ink towards the top of the ornament and then letting it fade off into white at the bottom. One of these ornaments will be for my card panel, and then the other will be my coordinating tag, so they're going to be created the exact same way. You might have noticed that some of my tags are inspired by my card panels, so they have similar colors and images, but they're not an exact replica, while others are an exact replica, so this will be one of those examples. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off my glass mat, and then here I have some die cut trees. I'm going to first lay out my card design just to see how many trees I want to use. And this is kind of the design that I'm going for. I want to have 3 trees in the back and 2 in the front. I have cut a panel to 4 by 5 1/4. That is that hot pink panel. And then on top of it, I have a 2.5-inch strip of white cardstock that will hold my ornament. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp out the small trees all with my Twisted Citron Distress Oxide ink, and then my larger trees I will stamp with the picked raspberry ink. So this is my first card where I actually did not do any embossing for the die cut images. These are all just colored inks, and you can definitely substitute for all of my cards ink instead of embossing powder. So I am stamping enough trees for my coordinating tag as well as my tag that will go on my card panel. So I wanted to dress up this plain white strip of cardstock, so I'm going to use the same inks, but I didn't want to use the first generation just because I didn't want this panel to distract from the ornament. So the way I'm going to make this panel more subtle is by stamping out the snowflake once on a scrap piece of paper, which is called the first generation, and then whatever ink is left on the stamp I will stamp onto the white strip, which will be the second generation of ink. And I'm just using 2 snowflakes here. I used one for the picked raspberry, one for the Twisted Citron, and then my third one, which is the smallest, I'm going to ink up with the sticky ink from the kit and stamp it in all the blank areas, I guess. And I will gold heat emboss those snowflakes. So that's just going to add a subtle shine to the background. I sort of just created my own pattern paper here, so there are a couple snowflakes that I stamped off the panel. Here you can see I'm going back in with the gold snowflakes just to fill in any blank areas. And I like how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and heat set. And because I used the second generation, I didn't have to worry too much about drying the ink before adding the embossing powder, just because it pretty much dries instantly when you stamp with Distress Oxide inks. So I'm really happy with that. I think it's nice and subtle, but adds a nice little pattern to the card. So here you can see I die cut a lime green ornament frame. And I created this by die cutting the ornament from green cardstock and then cutting the oval from the center. There's also a wavy oval that's included in the set. You can use that instead, but I kind of like the simplicity of the plain oval. So I'm going to add acetate behind both of these green frames because I want to create a shaker ornament. So here are my pink ornaments. I'm going to go ahead and add a snowbank to the bottom of each of them. You can see that there's still a little bit of pink peeking through at the bottom of the ornament. That's okay because my lime green frame is going to cover that completely. So I just worried about adding the snowbank right above that little point. All right, so I like that the snow kind of grounds my trees. They don't look like they're just floating in midair. I'm going to adhere all of the trees flat because, like I said, I want this to be a shaker card and I want my little snowballs to move easily. So I added the 2 small green ones in front of the 3 larger pink trees. I did the same thing with the other ornament, and then for one of the ornaments I'm going to use the styrofoam balls that I got from Hobby Lobby. These are so fun. I love that these look like little snowballs. And then for the other one, at the same section of Hobby Lobby, I found these gold balls. So I wanted to see what the gold would look like. So I'm going to pull those in for the second shaker. But I did add 2 layers of foam tape, by the way, and I do like how that turned out. And then here is the tag that I'm going to add the gold balls to. Now these are thicker than the white snowballs, so I did add 3 layers of foam tape to this one. So here I'm pouring out some of those gold balls onto my glass mat because I want to pick out the small ones to add into my shaker so that they move around a little bit better. You can also see that I am adding some gold sequin stars into the mix. I think that looks kind of cute. And even with the 3 layers of foam tape, it doesn't shake quite that well, but I think that's okay. I mainly wanted the gold for that glittery sparkle. So I am stamping out the sentiment with the picked raspberry Distress Oxide ink. I chose Jingle All the Way. I'm going to, I think, gold emboss it onto a white oval for my tag. And this oval is going to go on the back of my tag. So I try to add sentiments even to my tags if I can. So using the back of the tag is a great way to add your sentiment if you don't have room on the front. So I'm going to go ahead, heat set that, and I have a couple extra trees that I'm going to glue next to the sentiment. I'll first go ahead and just adhere my oval to my other lime green die cut ornament, and then I will adhere my extra trees next to the sentiment. And I love how that ties in with the front, but it's way more simplistic. You know, I don't go crazy with the back of my tags. I just want something there in case they hang it on a tree. Sometimes when you touch ornaments, they kind of rotate. So I just want to make sure that there's something on the back, or at least finished with another tag, like just a plain green one. And that's also going to add some stability to your tags as well. So I'm going to add some gold strips to this snowflake panel. Nothing new here. I just really like the subtle touches of gold. And it kind of ties in with those gold snowflakes that were embossed onto the pattern paper that I created. And then I'm going to just freehand cut my sentiment out. I am going to mat it onto some lime green cardstock, just using a scrap here and my scissors. And that is going to be adhered to the bottom of the ornament. I'm going to attach my ornament flat with art glitter glue. You can see I did add a white topper to the top of the ornament, and I'll pop up the sentiment with foam tape. And then I'm going to embellish this panel with some Trinity stamp pearls. You can also use the little snowballs, that would be super cute. And then for the bow on my ornament, I went with a pink organza ribbon from my stash. I have a serious hoarding problem when it comes to ribbon. Some of you guys are hoarders with pattern paper. I am that way with ribbon because I like to gift wrap almost as much as I love to card make, so I have every color under the sun when it comes to ribbon. So for the coordinating tag, I added the ribbon lower down. You might have noticed that with all of my tags, and that way the twine kind of still peeks through the loop. For the tags, I went with gold glitter toppers, which I think is really pretty. This is one of my favorite coordinating tags. It's just super cute, and I love the red and green non-traditional color scheme. Part 2, I really experimented with different colors for Christmas, like the red, white, and blue. I love the pink one so much that I decided to go with red and pink for this card design. So I am blending on some, I think this is Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink onto this Nina panel, which is cut to 4 by 5¼ inches. I think this is my 110-pound white cardstock. And then below the Candied Apple, I am adding picked raspberry. And again, I'm letting it kind of fade off into white. And I love how this turned out. I am going to go back twice with both colors just to make sure, or I guess I just did it with the red to create a nice gradient. And then I will spray this panel down with my water sprayer. And because it's Nina, it's not going to pick up too much ink, but you can see a little bit of it lifted. And you guys know me, I'm going to add shine with my Gonze Tombi watercolor. Now normally I go with pearlescent, but because these are warmer colors that I'm using, I opted for gold, and I just splattered that on with a paintbrush. And now I'm going to work on the ornaments. One of them will go on my card panel, and then one will be my coordinating tag. So I'm creating a gradient using 2 of the snowflakes from the stamp set. I stamped the top of the ornament with the Candied Apple ink, and then the middle I stamped with the picked raspberry ink, and then at the very bottom I used the 2nd generation of the picked raspberry to create a gradient that matched with the ink blended gradient that I created. So I'm taking the ornament die and the oval from the kit. You can see I'm going to die cut both of them from this ink blended panel so that I'm left with a frame as well as the oval. I'm going to use the oval on my coordinating tag. But here I wanted to add the frame back on top of the panel to create like a subtle looking ornament, if that makes sense. But I do want it to pop out a little bit, so what I'm going to do is I die cut the same ornament with the oval inside 3 times from heavyweight white cardstock. I'm going to layer those 3 together with art glitter glue, and then on the top I will add my ink blended frame, and it's going to raise up from the panel. So you're going to see that frame, but it's going to look really interesting because it blends in with the background. I don't know how to explain it. I've seen other people do this and it's a really cool technique. I love how it looks. So I decided to gold emboss the sentiment on the bottom right corner. And unfortunately, I lost the footage of me gluing the ornament together, but I basically just added a white ribbon to the top, a gold deer in the center, and I'm just accenting the panel with pearls. For my coordinating tag, I'm going to go with a gold frame around my snowflake ornament. And then again, I will adhere a gold prancing deer in the center. You could definitely add a snowbank, but I felt like, you know, pink snowflakes don't exist, so I don't really need something realistic for this tag. So I did the same thing with the back tag, but I'm going to use that ink blended oval that I cut out and gold heat emboss the sentiment on it. And then I'll just adhere that over my snowflake ornament. And I think that looks really pretty. And then I'm going to add, I think I go with the gold mirror toppers. Yes. For the front and back. No, only for the back, because the front has that gold frame. Alright, so I'm back to the card panel. I'm taking my card base now and I'm adhering the panel on top. If you were wondering how I adhered that white snowflake ornament, I just used Scotch tape to inlay it. And yeah, here are the 9th card set. So for my final card, you can see I arranged some of the stamps onto a craft and cream strip. I'll admit at this point I was pretty much out of ideas, so this one I just created on a whim. There was no idea planned for this one. But again, I'm going to work on the tag and the card at the same time. So I'm going to gold heat emboss the sentiment "Good Tidings to You" on a dark green oval. And then I did the same sentiment, I stamped it on a cream banner with dark green embossing powder. I don't end up liking this. You're going to see later that I'm going to gold heat emboss "Good Tidings to You" on dark green cardstock and cut the banner from that instead. But at the time I thought the cream would be better. So here is the craft ornament that I'm stamping my birds on. There's just a lot of stamping happening, guys. When you see me pour the embossing powder, you'll see the image better that I'm using. But I did add the 2 red birds to the side of the banner. So I used the banner as a guide to help me know where to stamp those birds. Below the banner, I'm going to emboss the 2 branches. And then in the center, I will gold emboss the bell from the stamp set. For the tag, I went with gold branches instead of green. And then my birds will obviously be red. This red powder does come in the kit. I just love this look of selective embossing, especially on the craft. I don't know what it was about the craft that I like so much, but the craft really makes the cards look rustic, I feel. So I wanted to emboss another pattern onto this cream panel just because I thought it was kind of plain. So I'm taking the row of diamonds and I'm going to just stamp that out in a row on the top and bottom of this cream panel. I've done this a couple times now. Still kind of creating a sweater pattern. But this was more so just to frame that craft strip in the center. So I will gold heat emboss the diamonds. Now again, I did not stamp them perfectly. They're kind of oddly spaced apart, but for the most part they're pretty straight, so I thought it looked okay. I'm going to go ahead and heat set everything now. Now the last 3 cards I was pretty much out of ideas and I was kind of thinking of them as I was going. This card is probably, I was so unsure after this point. After I was done embossing, I was like, okay, well now what do I do? Because I had all these different embossed elements and I didn't really know how to combine them all. Here I did have that "Good Tidings to You" on the green because I was unsure about that cream banner and I was right. So I'm going to recut that banner from the dark green. I added some red because I felt like I needed some red because of the birds. So I'm going to mount my cream panel on top of the red, and then I'll mount the craft on top of the cream, and then I'll mount the green banner on top of the craft. So lots of layering happening here. I did pop up the craft strip as well as the green banner just to add some dimension, and this was at the point where I was like, okay, what else do I do? I know right now I'm grabbing the twine really quickly, but I struggled with it off camera for a while trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because originally I wanted the strip to go across the panel, but I just didn't like how that looked. So I opted to glue the strip to the top of this dark green panel, which is 4 by 5 1/4, and then in that area on the bottom that's blank, I will add some twine, which I layered twice. I'm adhering the twine to the back of the card panel with Scotch tape. And then I'm going to create a double layered bow, and I'm going to adhere that bow where those two twine pieces meet. So I'm going to flip this panel around, add some ATG tape, and adhere it to my 110-pound white Neenah card base, and then I'll just accent it with some gold sequins from Trinity Stamps, and that is going to finish off the 10th card. Out of all 10, this one was the most simplistic, but for some reason I really struggled with this design. I don't know why. I think it's just because I didn't pre-plan this one, and when I sketch out my ideas, it's easier for me to create the card at that point. So I hope that makes sense. I'm sure you guys might be the same as me. So now we have the tag, and I loved that craft tag in part 1, so I again left the embossing very simple. I just went with red and gold. I'm going to attach some acetate behind my dark green frame, and I will create a shaker because I had the sequins already on my desk. I figured why not. So I am going to add 2 layers of foam tape behind this green frame, and then I'll take those leftover gold sequins by Trinity Stamps, and I sprinkled in a couple gold stars from Recollections. I did not fill this shaker too much just because it's just a simple tag. It most likely will be thrown away later. I hope it won't, but that is a possibility. So for the back of my tag, I'm just going to adhere the green oval to the center of the craft ornament, and then I'll add ATG tape and attach it to my front tag. And for the thread, or I guess the twine, I'm using red and white twine for the loop, and then I'll add a red satin bow. And that is going to complete my 10th design. I'm going to go ahead and show you all 10 cards with the coordinating tags. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to sell the cards. I might keep them as a set to give to my family. I also plan on for sure keeping all the tags because I love to decorate my presents. So if you join my team, if you're chosen, I will probably hang some of these tags on the packages that I send out for the team. And I might just keep the cards to kind of leave a welcome message inside, you know, welcoming them to the Scrappy Tales family. So yeah, remember that I do have a design team call open if you're interested. Even if you're a new YouTuber or a new blogger, I will definitely consider you. I don't care too much about the follower count. I mostly care about, you know, if you take good pictures, if you're active on social media, that sort of thing. But anyway, let me know what you guys think of the Hero Arts October kit. I loved it. I have really embraced embossing powders this year for Christmas. Let me know which card was your favorite, and I do apologize, part 2 came out a little bit later than I planned, and that's because my husband and I are actually house hunting right now. We did put an offer on a house, so fingers crossed that nothing goes wrong with that process. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you haven't yet already, please subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell so you're notified when I post another video. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye!